It's easy to get lost and overwhelmed when using ClickUp, especially for beginners. And I know that there's more than one way of doing things, but there are also some common mistakes you may be doing when in ClickUp. So I'll be sharing with you 7 ways on how not to use ClickUp. So first tip is don't set up 100 folders and lists. I know it's tempting to just keep on adding until your list is a mile long, but it's actually recommended that if you have that many lists, to put them into folders or to just group similar workflows or group them by department. And so just keep in mind that when you're creating spaces, folders, and lists, each of them should serve one purpose. So, for example, I have here my spaces for my business hub, lead generation, marketing, fulfillment, and SOP library, to name a few. And so I make sure that everything about my business operations is under my business hub, everything about lead generation, prospecting, clients are under lead generation, marketing, or social media, website, email, and so on and so forth. And next, don't set up spaces for clients. So it's better to actually have one space for all of your clients and just have one folder for each client. And that way it's easy to just archive a client when they're no longer active. And the only exception to that is if you have a big whale client who takes up a chunk of your income, or if you have a client with a complex project, that's when it would make sense for them to have their own space. And this third one is don't rush your workflow setup. Before you actually build out your ClickUp, you need to sit down and think about how you're going to structure it, starting from your list and to your space. So if you have a tool where you can diagram or have visual workflows, do use one like Lucidchart or Whimsical, and then map out your processes that way. So have one step where the task will be triggered, and then it will end when there is an output. And so when you have all of those mapped out, that's when you actually enter them all into ClickUp so that you have everything you need, all the custom fields that you need, and all the statuses of each task. And next is don't use stages for statuses. Ideally, you should only have 2 statuses, which are to do and complete, but sometimes it may not be possible. So just try to have as minimal statuses as possible, like to do, in progress, for approval, approved, and complete. That way, anyone knows exactly what that status stands for. If you have 20 or more statuses for each task, your team is not going to be able to remember all of that. And so they're not going to know what's next, and it's just easy to get lost in the process. If you're going to have stages, it's better to put them as custom fields. And so custom fields are these parts and are like columns. And so you can add here different custom fields that will further define your task. You can have them as a drop-down custom field, text, date, number, or checkbox, and other more. So in my example here, I have a launch for a podcast. And so I added a custom field for a timeline. So I would know how far out I have until the launch date. And so I would just put in here how many months, weeks, days I have before the actual launch. And so that would be where my stages are. And so my next tip is don't give a beginner access to everything. And it's very easy for them to get confused and overwhelmed. So at the start, just give them what they need. Create a list for them that will have all of their onboarding tasks. And I have a onboarding list for each new employee or contractor. And they will only be focused on the things that they can see and need to accomplish. And so if they see other folders or other spaces in your workspace, they might make a mistake or they might get lost and not know where to go. So just give them permissions by going to a specific list. For example, we have a team directory where they're added, and then go to sharing and permissions and invite that specific person into that list or folder. Next is don't neglect maintenance. So every quarter, I do have a ClickUp checklist. And so I check if there's any tasks that are not assigned, any overdue tasks or stale tasks that should be moving, or anything that's no longer relevant to me or my business. So I do a spring cleaning to make sure that my ClickUp is still relevant and up to date. And my last tip is don't assume everyone knows what to do in ClickUp. And so make sure that you invest in training and you're able to teach them on how to use their ClickUp. And you can also even set up a resource center of all of your ClickUp training videos. So that way you can just go ahead and have your new hire watch all of the videos and make sure that they go through them. You can also have a ClickUp expert as part of your team so that you can have a go-to person that they can approach at any time. So those are our tips on how not to use ClickUp. And if you do need a ClickUp expert, you know where to find us.